So let's strategize this again. In this process, we end up with a back and forth dialogue that really takes people to a new level of success on their own, which really means that they are learning how to problem solve at the same level that you have. So when you do this, though, obviously you are doing what I say, learning to train people to be as skilled as you are in solving problems, which is a great outcome, but it takes a lot of courage because people, especially like me, before I really thought through this and then lived it, I always knew that a lot of my value was in the fact that I could solve problems. I was the one who could make tough decisions and solve tough problems and tough issues, and I liked that feeling of being the one that people came to. It feels good when people come to you for advice. And the biggest challenge I had when I sat back and let go was, number one, letting go of that part of the ego within myself. Number two was trusting people enough, because you have to trust them. You have to trust them at a whole new level. And leadership is really knowing that you do not have your success based on your own merit anymore. You are successful because you create successful people. And when you can achieve that level of confidence within yourself to try it, it's a great outcome. So what I found with my team as I started rolling this out, and the reason that I ended up writing a book about it to share my foibles with it, but also to share the successes, is that one of the greatest outcomes that I had was that my team then, over the next months and years, hardly ever came to me for anything that was trivial. And it wasn't because they were trying to keep them from me, they were problem solving. So when they came to me, more often than not, they were for collaborative efforts. So somebody might call and say, Michael, I need a few minutes of your time. I have this issue. This is how I broke it down. These were all the things that I thought were important. This was the solution that I thought would work. This is how I tried it. This is what worked. This is what didn't work. And I need some help trying something different. So all of a sudden, people are coming to me really after they have moved several steps already down the road. And their level of success was amazing. I saw some of my team members just reach heights that I always knew they were capable of, but I never thought I'd see as quickly as I did. One of my greatest success stories came from an individual who reported to me, and he had really been doing a lot of work on himself as a leader. And he was trying to move from the leader he had been to a whole new level of leader. And he was a good leader before, but I'd say that more likely than not, he was one that would tell. I'm going to tell you what to do and expect you to do it, instead of someone who would really truly lead. And, leading in my book is sometimes you have to tell people what they need to do. But a real strong leader is someone who gets people excited and engaged in doing the things that they need to do to be successful in their job and successful for the company. And so he was making a lot of forward progress, but I could tell it was really hard for him at times to kind of overcome his nature, the part of him that he had been for so long. And we were rolling out a new sales presentation. And the sales presentation was very different. It required people to do things that they had not done before. It required a lot of leaps of faith, and it required a different kind of training tool from the leadership down to the salespeople. So he called me one day, and he said, it was just a mess. Actually, I didn't even get the text that said red light. So, when I talk about my stoplight, red light, green light, yellow light methodology for connecting, he just called one day. And I knew that he only called when things were really important. So I picked up the phone, and it was this like total nonstop whipping of himself. He said, Michael, I just did this conference call training with my people, and I was telling them what we needed to do, and I was training them on the new sales presentation, and they weren't talking, and there was nothing going on, and nobody was interacting, and he just kept, as he talked to me, he was getting more and more agitated. I could feel it over the phone. and I knew the struggle that he had, because it wasn't he wasn't best. He didn't operate best in phone conference training. He was a really great in-person trainer, but this wasn't where his forte was. And as he got through, I just listened, and I didn't even have to say, tell me more. He just, vomited it all out there. And as we got near the end where he was kind of wearing himself out, I said, so where do you think things went wrong? So when he took a deep breath, he said, I don't think I listened or asked for any feedback on this conference call. I think I just was telling them, and I told them what they needed to do. And when they didn't interact and they weren't having positive response, I just kept telling them and trying to get them excited about it. And none of them were excited. And I said, wow, that must have been really frustrating. And he said, yeah, it was so frustrating. And I said, okay, so what do you think you should do? And he goes, I don't know. I really don't know. You know I hate to ask for help. You know I hate to ask for feedback, but that's why I'm calling. Which is really kind of the last major point of this tell me more, or this listen, learn, and lead strategy, is sometimes your people will come to you and say, I really do not have any idea what to do. And when they get to that point, they are very vulnerable. And that's when it's important that we move to more guiding them, and instead of trying to draw out from them, because they're asking for it and they don't need to be beaten up anymore. So I said, okay, well, this is an incredible situation here, and I do have some suggestions for you, but it's going to be really hard for you to do, and it's going to be really uncomfortable. And I said that, and I just left it out there. And he was quiet, and he goes, okay, what is it? And part of my strategy, just like having difficult conversations, is I like to be upfront when I know that something's going to be really uncomfortable, because I want people to be prepared for it. I don't want to tell them and later have them go, well, gosh, I don't want to do that. I want to say, this is going to be bad, this is going to be really bad, you're not going to like this at all. So that when he says okay, that he's already bought in, and he's already made some sort of commitment to do something that's unpleasant. So I said, here's my suggestion. I'd like you to call every single member of your team. And I don't want you to start with the ones that like you. I want you to start with the ones that you have the least amount of good connection with. And I could hear him go, and what I want you to ask them is how you could have made that call better. And let me give you an example. I might call them and say, hey, I just want to tell you that I thank you so much for being on our training calls, and I want you to know that today I had something really important I wanted to share with you guys, and I think I really blew it. I don't think that I did a good job trying to do this training or convey the excitement I have for it. And I'd like to know if you have any feedback for me of how I can make these conference calls more dynamic and get people involved. And he was silent. He goes, I knew you were going to ask something like that of me. And I said, well, that means that you're getting to know me a little bit better. But why do you think I want you to do that? And why do you think I want you to start with the people that you don't have the best connections with? And so I went back a little bit into my asking mode, and he said, I know, I get it. You want me to be humble. And I said, yep, I think that's important. And you want me to start with the people that aren't my allies because they're not going to tell me the truth in the first place. And I said, you're right. It's true. When we ask people that we know and like, it's really hard for them, those that know and like us, to give us true, honest feedback sometimes. So when you start with the ones that maybe aren't your allies or that you don't have the best connections with, it can be really hard. And I told him, I said, look, you can't defend yourself. You need to be quiet and listen and say thank you afterward and then get off the phone. I don't want you to try and have a dialogue. I don't want you to have a what if or a but. I want you just to have a listening experience. And honestly, when I hung up the phone with him, I thought, he'll make it through like 3 people. I don't think he'll make it through his whole group. He had about 12 salespeople, I believe. I thought there's no way he's going to get through them all. And, he actually called me a few hours later and said, that was both the worst thing I've ever had to do in my career and the best. And we had a wonderful dialogue about it because it was honest, and he was open for it, and he was ready for it. And I watched his development over the next few months and just saw him achieve such wonderful new heights because he let down some barriers. That person, that leader in him that had been the teller, that had been the one that expected people just to do things because he was the boss, really didn't have a lot of confidence in there. It was just the way he operated. But once he allowed himself to be vulnerable to his team, he not only learned from them, but he learned it wasn't going to hurt to be vulnerable. And he saw the uptick of what it meant to really engage people. So it may not always be the easiest thing to do, to listen, learn, and lead, whether it's leading others or leading ourselves. But the more that we close our mouths and open our ears, the more that we are going to all shock our potential. So your assignment is to take some time to reflect on the leader you are today, or the leader that you want to become if you aren't one yet. And ask yourself, do you find it's usually a lot easier for you to just do things yourself rather than take the time and energy to train someone else to do it, or ask someone else to do it, or trust someone else to do it? Spend some time journaling on that, because that's where the key is to your ability to go to the next level with this. And when you think about this next level, the question is, have you yet approached your team, or if you're not leading one yet, thinking in the future, to the point where you know that you're training someone who could take over your job the day that you're able to move into the next one? That's the ideal situation, is that we're all taking people to the next level and taking ourselves there as well. So, as always, make sure to share your comments, questions, and feedback on the SYP app at shockyourpotential.com. And once a month, I'll pick a lucky winner to make sure to get autographed copies of my books.